Italy has long stood at a crossroads between two identities: a nation rooted in a deep pacifist cultural ethos, and a country that possesses one of the most capable and respected naval industries in the world. This dual nature is not contradictory. It is precisely the tension between them that defines the Italian strategic psyche. The recent naval export engagements with Indonesia and Greece illustrate a subtle but deliberate attempt by Rome to redefine what it means to be a maritime power in the 21st century. Rather than exporting war, Italy increasingly seeks to export maritime stability, technical excellence, and cooperative capability building. To understand why these cases matter, one must first understand the post-war psychology of Italy. After the devastation of the Second World War, Italy internalized a distinctive constitutional and cultural stance, rejecting war as a tool of national policy. This embedded a deep skepticism within society toward military adventurism and arms proliferation. Italy does not want to be seen as a state that fuels conflict. Yet at the same time, Italy has retained and advanced a world-class naval design and shipbuilding tradition. Fincantieri, Marina Militare, and the industrial ecosystem in Liguria and Friuli form an export-capable maritime capability unmatched by many larger nations. The key question, therefore, is how Italy can deploy that capability in a way that aligns with its ethical self-image. This is where the case of Indonesia becomes particularly illuminating. Indonesia is not merely a customer. It is an emerging major maritime actor in the Indo-Pacific, facing real-world challenges of policing a vast archipelago, deterring illegal fishing, maintaining search and rescue coverage, and ensuring safe shipping along one of the world's most critical sea lanes. Italian offshore patrol vessels provided through the recent contract are not symbols of militarization. They are tools of good maritime governance. These ships enable Indonesia to perform Coast Guard-like missions, regional surveillance, and humanitarian operations. For Italian viewers, this is important. A vessel built in Italy becomes not an instrument of coercion, but one of responsible statecraft at sea. The Indonesian partnership also expands Italy's presence into Southeast Asia, not through geopolitical confrontation, but through technical cooperation and mutual maritime professionalism. It is a different face of influence: quiet, constructive, and anchored in maritime law rather than force projection. The case of Greece, meanwhile, represents a different but equally strategic narrative, a solidarity transaction within the European and NATO family. When Italy transfers naval vessels to Greece, the optics and the implications are entirely different from the controversial sale of 2 Frem frigates to Egypt several years ago. Greece is not a human rights concern. It is a long-standing democratic ally, a naval actor with legitimate maritime security needs in the Aegean and Eastern Mediterranean, and a state operating fully under Western defense norms. Moreover, transferring existing Italian vessels to Greece is part of a circular industrial strategy. Italy frees up tonnage, maintains continuous shipbuilding rhythm, and replaces exported hulls with newer domestic orders, thus sustaining jobs, competencies, and naval readiness. The result is a win for industrial policy and a win for alliance cohesion. Italian workers see continuity of employment. Italian engineers remain engaged at the cutting edge of naval technology, and the Mediterranean security architecture is strengthened rather than destabilized. These two cases form the heart of Rome's new narrative framing. Italy is not an arms exporter feeding conflict zones, but a naval partner contributing to maritime stability. This is not an accidental shift. It is a deliberate reframing effort. Italian political leadership and media commentators increasingly emphasize technical cooperation, industrial competence, and long-term strategic relationships rather than the raw transactional language of arms sales. The messaging highlights ship design, interoperability, maintenance packages, job creation, technology transfer, and diplomatic continuity. In other words, when Italy communicates exports to Indonesia or Greece, it talks less about selling steel and weapon systems and more about building maritime security networks. This matters because Italy's naval export reputation suffered during the Egyptian Frem transaction. That sale, although economically advantageous and technically successful, intersected with profound moral anxieties in Italian society regarding human rights and the death of Giulio Regeni. It forced Rome to manage an uncomfortable contradiction, supporting domestic shipbuilding while appearing complicit with an authoritarian buyer. The legacy of that episode now acts as a reference point for corrective strategy. The Indonesian and Greek cases are intentionally different. They sit on the clean side of the ethical ledger. At the political-industrial level, this strategy also enhances Italy's soft power projection. Rome does not possess the global enforcement mechanism of the United States, nor the assertive naval diplomacy model of China. Italy's comparative advantage is different. Craftsmanship, reliability, technical cultural capital, and an international identity associated more with mediation than confrontation. An Italian-built ship arriving in Jakarta or Piraeus carries connotations of engineering excellence rather than hegemonic ambition. Looking ahead, one can see the long-term orientation. Italy is positioning itself as a provider of mid-sized frigates, versatile patrol vessels, and life-cycle maritime support packages for countries that seek reliable naval capacity without entering a patron-client dynamic with superpowers. Potential future markets may include nations such as Malaysia, Vietnam, Romania, or even Chile, where maritime security needs are pressing, but where buyers value long-term partnerships based on mutual respect rather than geopolitical leverage. Behind this is a deeper philosophical architecture consistent with Italian strategic thought, a doctrine of defense that prioritizes stability and deterrence over aggression. The Italian Navy itself embodies this. Its force structure privileges anti-submarine warfare, mine countermeasures, escorting, humanitarian capability, and maritime policing rather than offensive strike dominance. Italy exports what it practices. The result, from a societal perspective, is a more comfortable narrative for Italian citizens. Instead of the unease that arises from associating ship exports with foreign repression or violent conflict, Italians can increasingly see their naval industry as contributing to international safety, legal maritime order, and cooperative security. The transition is psychological as much as material, from doubt to cautious acceptance to a grounded and reasonable pride. In the final analysis, the Indonesia and Greece cases are not isolated commercial transactions. They are instruments of strategic identity shaping. Italy is redefining its role from warship seller to maritime stabilizer. It is using shipyards not to fuel wars, but to build networks of peaceable sea control. This is a maritime strategy aligned with Italian history, Italian values, and Italian strategic culture. To be strong at sea not for conquest, but for security,